All right, welcome everyone. We are back with more Trophy Golds. As a reminder, this game was set up through the Gauntlet. It's a community of gamers that play various tabletop games, from you know the very story heavy to some more OSR and some traditional. We also the Gauntlet also has a publishing wing. They publish Brindlewood Bay Trophy, which we're playing tonight, as well as the Codex Zine that comes out on a regular basis. So if you're interested in that, do go search for Gauntlet RPG and check us out. We're going to go around real quick and do some player introductions. When you introduce yourself, go ahead and give us your name and your pronouns, please. And then you can also go ahead and introduce your character. Just a brief overview is fine. And I'll start. My name's John. I use he, him pronouns. I am the game facilitator tonight. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. Matt, would you mind going first?
Sure. My name's Matt. I live in, he, him, live in Boston. Have not played Trophy Gold before, but have heard good things about it from, other gamers that I know. Oh, and my character, Kano the Masked. This is definitely a pseudonym. The whole thing is, runaway Kingsguard, and the drive is like earn the right to my family name. So presumably he like abandoned his post in some, revolution when he should have been protecting the royalty of some nation, and has to do something of truly, great renown in order to be able to sort of like take the mask off and go back to civilization permanently. Like he can go in and out of town, but
very interesting. So it sounds like he wears a mask at all times.
Yeah, more
Very
or
cool.
less.
Very cool. All right, and next up we have Chris playing Gordred.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris. I use he, him pronouns. I'm out on the West Coast, Northern California, and I'm playing Gordred, who uses he, they pronouns. Gordred is this kind of burly, rowdy type. They are an ox who used to be a heretical inquisitor. And so they're skilled in destruction and persistence and strength and secrets. And their drive is to give their betrothed the present they crave. And last time I decided that their betrothed is a demon.
Very, just the kind of betrothed you want, right? The best to take home to the parents. All right, and next up, Puckett, would you introduce yourself, please, and Rose?
Hi there, my name's Puckett. I use he, him pronouns. Tonight, I will be playing Rose, who is a retired combat sorcerer who is at this point kind of wandering. She may be wandering with a purpose. She may be looking for something, but I figure we'll find all that out in play.
Yes, indeed. And last but certainly not least is Joel and Cassian.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Joel. I use he, him pronouns. I'm playing Cassian, who also uses he, him pronouns. Cassian is a spy currently who kind of like trades in information, but he used to be a fugitive servant. So that means that he's trained in silence, poison, impersonation, and evasion. And he's doing all this like treasure hunting and hoarding of stuff to try and humiliate the Chancellor of Yogyakarta Lyceum, which I think we learned last time is like a very prestigious, very powerful, like mages college, university type place.
Yes. So the group of you were hired to retrieve the eyes of the icon of Saint Largoth. They have been stolen and taken to the hellhole, an abandoned hellhole deep in Graventosk, which is this immense cemetery deep in the forest of Sarkash. You've each been told that For successfully retrieving the eyes and returning them, you'll receive 1 gold each just for that purpose. As well, anything you find or retrieve, of course, is yours to keep for the trouble. The party arrived and begun delving into this mausoleum that had been broken open. There were signs of things being dragged into the mausoleum. There was a dirt trail leading inside. And the dirt trail led into this pollen filled staircase that led deeper into the crypt. But before exploring that area, the party first investigated this top room. They found a couple of interesting things. First, they found a man who was somewhat delirious with this spore fever, and he screamed at them, telling them not to go any deeper, don't venture below. He said that he had been captured by demons and they took his eyes. Ultimately, the party was forced to deal with him when he attacked one of the members. And then they uncovered from one of the sarcophagus in this room a body that was very well preserved and dressed in these fine silks. And that's when we learned some about the Lyceum, because this person had a mark in their sarcophagus that was associated with this lineage of dark wizardry. Pressing a little bit to the side passage from this room, Cassian and Gordred fashioned a twine rope so that Cassian could cross a narrow stone bridge leading across to a landing where there is a bronze door covered. It's locked with heavy chains, and written in blood are the words "Go to Neck." And as we just ended our last session, Cassie, you hear banging and screaming from the other side of the door, someone yelling that they need to be let out. They can't believe they've locked them in here. What is wrong with all of you? Cassian, Gordred, what do you do?
I think that's kind of like the point where Cassian like tugs on the rope and is like, "I want to come back now."
I like wind it a couple more times around my fist. Like, okay, I got it. We're good.
Yeah, and I think you did the 1 risk roll for the crossing. I don't think we need to do a second one in this case. And apologies, I'll remind you. So we're in this first set of the incursion. And since we've got some new players, I'll just kind of briefly explain how incursions are laid out. Incursions are made up of sets. Sets don't necessarily equal a finite physical area. They can, cross several rooms or even layers of a place. They're more of just a framing for part of the story, and each set has a goal. The set goal is what you as players know your characters are trying to accomplish in this area. So for this first set, your set goal is to learn what has stolen the eyes, and that's eyes with a capital E for the eyes of Saint Largoth. So yeah, Cassian, you can make it back across this stone walkway easy enough and rejoin Gordred and the others on this side. I was thinking how we should handle the hunt tokens from the other players, because that is somewhat of a group commodity since they can be used for achieving the set goal. So I'm inclined to just say you're gonna have them available. I think Randon had some. Let me re-show these characters real quick so we can see how many they each had. Randon had 3 hunt tokens, and Donan did not have any. So I'm just going to say that there are 3 other hunt tokens out there available for you all. So you've got that as an option if you want to spend hunt tokens to figure out this set goal. Or you can head back, go down those stairs, or you can look for more information about this door and the person or thing trapped behind it.
Sorry, one more time. What sort of structure are we in?
So it's like a mausoleum crypt.
Okay.
There was a mausoleum at the entryway of the top cemetery that had a heavy stone door that was cracked open and showed signs of passage coming in and out of it.
And they've explored the top room, or we sort of have explored the top room, and then there's this like pit and then a door on the other side of that.
Yeah, the initial room had 2 exits from it, a hallway to a side room, which is where the party is at now, and then a stairway leading down deeper into this mausoleum. So this side hallway has emptied out into this bottomless, seemingly pit, though you can feel heat rising up from the depths of it, and you can see an eerie red glow that just permeates up from the depths of this area.
You mentioned something about dark sorcery or dark sorceress texts, if I heard it correctly.
Correct.
And were those down the stairs, or which direction was that?
That was in the first room. It was imprinted inside of the sarcophagus that the characters had cracked open.
And so where did it say to go to look for those texts?
Sorry, which text? Sorry.
So the inside of the crypt mentioned that was where there was the mention of the dark sorcery.
Yeah, there was a sigil, basically embossed inside of this sarcophagus that they opened up, and that sigil is associated with the Lyceum, a lineage of dark sorcerers that practice at the Lyceum.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So this made Cassian super spooked, and we put the body back and closed it back up.
Yes. The fine silk clothes that the body was dressed in would be worth a gold back in town. But at the moment, Cassian has persuaded others that it's not worth taking those.
Yeah, I think he slammed the cover shut and was like, "It's probably trapped. We don't want none of that."
All right, so I have a proposal for how we handle that door. I will place a trap in front of it. We will warn the people in there that if they try anything when they leave, they will be cut down. Between the trap and my bow, not a problem. But perhaps they really are prisoners.
I mean, the door is locked from our side.
Mm-hmm.
So
Surely someone among us can deal with that.
I mean, that's a lot of chains and stuff on that door. Do we want to let out whatever's inside?
a little more than an ordinary prisoner might need on the door, but the stairs on the other side of the tomb, I don't want to go down those stairs. So
Then we must deal with the door.
or the pit.
Wait, sorry, out of game. What?
Yeah. So there's this pit in the bulk of it's like this room that the door is on the other side of. The floor caved in to this massive pit.
Yeah, that's
And
the
so
bottomless
we could
pit.
we could rappel down the pit, maybe.
The door does say go to net or go to hell.
Mhm.
I like to perform a ritual.
Okay.
Also good.
I want to use swarm to find out what's behind the door.
Mm.
Okay.
It's nice to have someone with a useful ritual in this situation.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely into this. So this is a risk roll since you're using a ritual, and rituals are risky.
Mhm.
But why don't you go ahead and describe sort of the initial fiction of, like, what does it look like as Rose conjures this magic? And so Swarm says trade favors with a colony of vermin. And so what does that setup look like?
I think I hear a little bit of squeaking from, a corner. And I look over there and I see a rat, and I know that generally when rats squeak like that, that means there's some sort of respiratory issue. But I, I tend to be pretty good with rodents, so I'll pull out a little piece of bread from my backpack and offer it to the rat as kind of just a symbol of good faith. And the rat comes over and takes it. And over the years as a sorcerer, I've learned a number of things, such as how to speak in the hidden language of rodents. And so you'll see me kind of like wiggling my fingers a little bit, like almost like I'm trying to imitate the movement of whiskers. And the rat kind of looks almost like it does a shuffling dance. And I kind of rock back and forth on my side, on my sitting down, just to like kind of give the appearance of similar motion. And then the rat squeaks and scurries off into the darkness.
Very nice. So for a risk roll, it says when you attempt a risky task, say what you hope will happen, and then ask the GM and the other players what could possibly go wrong. So in this case, what do you hope will happen?
I hope that the rat or other rats will be able to tell us what exactly is behind that door, so we know what we're facing before we take any kind of action with it.
Okay. And now we say what we think could possibly go wrong. And so this can be, anything that you can think of that would make sense right now for this situation.
Is it all of us, or like there's 4 possible things that could go wrong?
Yeah. So in this case, it's left to my choice to ultimately pick the thing that might go wrong. But the whole player group gets to have input and put out ideas of what they think might go wrong.
Is
So,
it like 4 discrete ideas, or do we each just kind of come to a consensus?
it can be 4 discrete ideas, or we can riff on one another and kind of develop a joint idea. It can go either way.
As a quick
Right.
question,
Yeah.
do you care if the player rolling throws ideas in?
I don't, because again, ultimately, I'm going to be the one choosing, and so I might take it and just twist it a bit.
Mhm.
The only thing is players can't do their own devil's bargains, which we'll get to in a moment.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm totally cool with you throwing out ideas for what could go wrong. I don't see an issue with that.
One thing that I think I can think of is that by the rat or a rat or rodent getting in to see what it is, it also gives whatever it is and a pathway to get out, like it's some sort of spectral form or something like that that can escape that way.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it could be whatever's on the far side of the door could be somehow powerful enough that it could like take control of the rats, which isn't necessarily mutually exclusive with using the rats to escape.
Yeah. Joel or Chris, any ideas? Whoopsie.
Yeah, I'll say like maybe the magic works a little differently here, and you kind of develop a empathic connection with the rats, and you kind of feel whatever they feel on the other side.
Ooh.
Yeah, I like that too. I'll throw something else out that the rats might, in tunneling, their way into this area degrade the whole foundation of this landing that you're standing on, potentially making it unstable. Chris, any ideas? Anything to throw out?
Nothing coming to mind. So
Okay, no problem.
we have some good ideas out there.
Yeah.
So one other idea, and I'm not sure necessarily how this would work in Trophy's framework, but what if the rat comes back and tells us, and it's so terrifying that we're all shocked, dazed, stunned, something along those lines?
Yeah, I was having a similar thought, and I was saving that for the devil's bargain. But that's a good idea too, because that could certainly just be something that goes wrong. So after we say things that could go wrong, we gather dice. So you're going to take one light die for having a skill or an occupation, background, or training. I think in this case, the ritual, right, is what gives you
the training.
The training. And then you can get a second light die for accepting a devil's bargain from another player or the GM. So devil's bargains are things that will happen regardless of the outcome of the dice roll, whether you succeed or fail at what you're hoping to do. And when we're going to get proposals from anyone at the table. Anyone can offer one, though it's not required, it's optional. But when you're proposing a devil's bargain, something to keep in mind is make sure it's not something that would negate a success or prevent a failure, right? So good devil's bargains usually introduce some sort of a twist or a hard bargain or something like that, versus saying, well, you just aren't going to get that thing. So some examples of devil's bargains from the book are causing collateral damage or unintended harm, getting lost or separated from your companions, sacrificing an item or piece of treasure, betraying a fellow treasure hunter, or attracting the attention of monsters or other creatures. So with that in mind, does anyone have a devil's bargain that they would like to offer Rose?
I can't offer one of my own, right?
That's correct. So in this case, you can't offer your own devil's bargain. Yeah.
Okay. I'll remain quiet.
I think the creature on the far side could get the wrong idea about us, and become hostile towards the party, sort of like, even though or even if we get the information about it, like, what kind of weird, it's like Henry Jones over there, like, I fucking hate rats.
Yeah, I like that. It just
ratomancers
forces a sort of an angry disposition. Makes sense.
Although it could be subtle about it, right? It could be crafty about it, but we out of game know. Like, that's my proposed devil's bargain.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna go with you attract the attention of another creature.
Something from the pit.
Yeah, so something that's not the thing behind the door.
Okay. Any other devil's bargains?
I'll say maybe like as the rats cross the hell pit or whatever, they're kind of infected with evil energy or whatever, and either right away or either later, they're kind of like warped into a problem we have to deal with, and we have little like hellhound rats.
I love the idea of hellhound rats. That's so good.
I feel like that's something out of Warhammer.
Chris, any ideas?
Yeah, apparently rats just aren't sparking ideas in me right now.
And I think it's easy to get hung up trying to come up with like something that's like a big twist or whatever. It's never wrong to offer the basic simple stuff of like, oh, well, you drop something while you're doing the magic. I think that's actually like, it's good to have that balance of ranges so that,
we do have a giant pit.
Yeah.
for things to fall into. So
Yeah.
good to keep in mind.
Okay. Puckett, any of those sound like something you'd like to accept?
Well, I have a sneaking suspicion that the entire reason I'm in here is because a sorcerer that I was apprenticed to asked me to come look for something for him. And it feels to me like attracting this notion of something that isn't aware that we are there yet would be the reason why my mentee would not want to come to this place and would send someone in his stead. So let's go with that.
Okay, so you'll attract the attention of something else. Very good.
So there's 2 light dice.
Two
so
light
far.
dice. And we would normally ask the question of if you're willing to risk your mind or body in order to succeed. But in this case, since you're doing a ritual, you must include this die. So you're going to be rolling 2 light dice and a dark dice.
Mhm.
You'll take the highest die to determine your choice. And if that highest die is the dark die, then your ruin may go up. We will see.
All right.
So
Let's have some fun with this.
yeah, we are on the risk point already, so you can change that.
There's a 6
Ooh.
on the light die, 2 on the dark.
Very nice. Okay, so in a 6, you succeed. Describe how. So you were hoping to learn about what's behind the store, so you're going to succeed in that. So why don't you go ahead and finish the narration of what it looks like as the magic is cast in this, is it a single rat or a colony of rats that comes back, and then I'll tell you, what information they bring.
You see my eyes cloud over, almost like that kind of translucence of something that's been underground for too long and can't really see that well. And in the darkness, in the walls, you can start hearing skittering like little rat claws everywhere. And then a few moments, the sound fades and a few moments pass. And then you start to hear that skittering getting closer again. And before too long, it's not that the room is filled with rats, but there's quite a lot of them. And they all have the kind of similar clouded over translucent eyes. And one crawls onto me, crawls up my cloak, and starts, it almost has like a little bit of chittering in my ear. And with that, suddenly my eyes are back to normal and all the rats' eyes are back to normal. And a lot of them skitter back into the darkness, but the one that's scurried up onto my shoulder sticks around. And I look at him and say, "Thank you, Phineas. Also, that's quite an elegant name for a rat, if I do say so."
Yes, and so what Phineas and the others have brought back to you is they've told you that behind that door is, they call them the fish people. One of the fish people has been locked away. They tell you it's one that the others are very angry with. They drug them up here from down below and locked them away. And so the ritual says that you trade favors. So they've done their favor for you, and so in return, I think they also asked that if you would, these creatures, they hunt us, they harm us. We are their dinner. Would you please do something with them? Drive them away. They did not used to live here. She brought them here.
Hmm.
And then about that time is when you can all feel it in the air. It's subtle, but there's a distinct change to the electrical current in the air almost. And the colony of rats, save Phineas, who is perched on Rose's shoulder, they all stop. and then in synchronized motion, they scurry away and disappear into little crevices, and you just get the sense that something's taken notice.
All right, I've been looking around. I've got an arrow and my bow. I'm like, what could be? I mean, I've got beasts as a skill. Like, I feel like if the thing that's coming is a beast, I might have a good, that might be useful.
And I think what we're going to do is we're going to take our top of the hour break right now, and we can all have a chance to think on this. So why don't we take 10 minutes, or let's be back at 15 after. Does that sound good for everyone?
For me.
Excellent. See y'all at 15 after. Okay, we are back. So I think there was just a little bit of discussion right before we broke of there's this new information. It is one of the we've heard of fish people, we've heard of demons, these creatures down below. Seems like whoever you talk to, you get their perspective on what these creatures are, but it's one of them behind this door. Seems like they're probably a bit of an outcast from the rest, having been locked away. And you definitely get the sense something else is now stirring within this whole area. Something else has noticed your presence now. So, what do you want to do?
So I want to locate the source of this new problem and possibly shoot it with an arrow.
Very good. Okay. This I think sounds like a hunt roll. So you do a hunt roll whenever you ask questions about the world, or pry for more information or investigate things. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what's it look like for Kano to be probing the world looking for more information?
Yeah, so I mean, he has an arrow knocked, right? He's like ready to go, and he's like taking these like short little furtive shuffling steps, looking every which way, kind of 360 degrees all at once.
Very nice. Also, I wanted to point out, after last week's game, I went and kind of reread over some things. I had said last week that combat equipment couldn't be used for doing a hunt roll. I think I was wrong. I don't see anything in the rules that say you can't do that. It's just you have to use it in a way that improves your odds of success. And then I think, by using it, you also kind of put it on the table for something to go bad with it. So, but I don't see anything that says you can't use your combat equipment. So I just figured I'd, put myself on tape as saying I got that one wrong. I'm learning to run this too. So, all right. So Kano, for doing a hunt roll, you get one light colored die just for exploring the world and asking the GM questions about it. You can get a second die if you have a skill or piece of equipment that would make your hunt easier.
Yeah, I'm trained in hunting.
Trained in hunting.
All right, Ranger.
I think that makes sense in this case. Using your hunting skills, looking for any new disturbances and whatnot. All right. So yeah, you've got 2 light dice. Go ahead and let's see. I'll click over to hunt.
So is it? It's training or an equipment. It's not additive.
Correct, because the most you can never roll is 2 light dice. So you could be using equipment and training if you want to just flavor it that way, but you're not going to get beyond 2 dice.
Okay, and then the dark die is the devil's bargain, or?
So in a hunt roll, you can. In a hunt roll, you actually don't use dark dice.
Oh, and I don't need to worry about devil's bargain?
Correct. That's only on the risk roll.
Okay. I got a 5.
All right. Highest result is a 5. So you take 1 token, but you encounter something terrible. So on your character sheet, you can go ahead and up your hunt tokens, add 1 to those.
Got it.
And as I said, hunt tokens are sort of a meta currency. You can turn that in at any point if you want to immediately get a treasure back, or you as a group can decide to spend 3 of them and immediately achieve the set goal and have that accomplished. So, so you already described Kano like kind of with an arrow knocked, looking around. I picture him peering over the edge, looking in the corners of this pit where you're standing, and you see the colony of rats like scurry over the side and start crawling into these crevices. And as you're staring down deeper into this pit, you catch a glimpse of an opening, a bit of an opened um, doorway. It looks like at one point was a fully established doorway. It's collapsed a bit at this point, and that's when you see these small creatures start swarming out of that doorway, and you hear these high-pitched squeaks as the swarm of bats erupts out of this area. And as they erupt out into this pit and start flying up towards you, you see them light fire. Their bodies are lit in flames as they rush towards the group of you.
Well, I'm definitely putting an arrow through one of them.
Yes. So I think we're gonna do combat now. So the way combat works is there is an endurance level for the beasts that you don't know up front. You each will say who's participating in combat, and you'll describe how you are vulnerable if you're in that combat. And then for each participant, you will roll a dark die. And you're going to roll all of that together, and we'll add the total up. And if that total is more than the monster's endurance, you beat it. And you'll narrate kind of how, what that looks like and how it goes. And if it's not over it, then we add more dark dice and we keep going. And so that's kind of how combat works. So combat can be very fast, or it can take a couple of rounds depending on how high the monster endurance is. So you've got this swarm of flying creatures with flaming bodies that have erupted from this space, and they're coming straight for you. I think in this first pass, since they're at a distance, who all has ranged weapons? Is it only Kano?
Do rats count as vermin?
Do rats count as vermin? I think so.
Can I do a ritual as a ranged weapon?
I'm gonna say yes. I remember that this is an area that is currently under discussion with the trophy rule makers of how to handle rituals in combat, and I don't know what their ruling is at this point. So I'm just gonna go with what makes sense to me. I don't see why you can't use a ritual, for a combat weapon, because you're putting you're gonna have your own way of being at risk for now. But I think in this first pass, it's at a range, so if you don't have a ranged weapon, you probably won't be able to participate unless you're willing to throw your melee weapon. So it sounds like we've got Kano and Rose participating. Is that right?
Yeah, I think the most Gorgrid is doing right now is as the lit torch up, like arm's length, like try to keep them at a distance, keep them away from.
And if they don't deal with them in this one, then they're going to be on all of you in the next go. So for Rose and Kano, where it says you've got the weak point along your items, go ahead and click set. If we were playing at a table with physical dice, you'd be rolling a light die, and the number that you get would be your weak point. So this is basically just you rolling a light die to get a weak point a number.
Okay, so just roll one light die.
So you have an item on your character sheet where it says weak point. It's up by your burdens, and there's a set and a clear button. If you click set, it will set your
Oh,
weak
okay.
point. And then we'll see them show up. You see they show up there in the with the dice roller in the combat area.
I see.
So this is your weak point. So when you roll the die, when we're about to roll these 2 dark dice, if a 4 or a 5 is rolled, that means you take ruin.
Okay.
And then you have the choice of, do you want to mark your armor and absorb that ruin? But that's how we know whether or not you get hurt in this combat.
Mhm.
So, all right. So now we just need to both describe how are you vulnerable in this moment.
I think in my case, if I'm doing a ritual, I can't block whatever damage is coming. So I think in that case it goes directly to ruin. It doesn't. I don't even have the option of using armor to bypass it. Does that seem reasonable?
That seems reasonable to me. I was also thinking that the ritual might backfire. There might be some sort of magical reflection or something off these creatures. But yeah,
Either
I think
or.
that makes sense.
What's the like how are you vulnerable like description? Is it like what happens on a failure?
It is how you're putting yourself at risk by participating in this combat. And it might be, that the creature is able to harm you because you're busy doing an action. It might be that in Kano's case, you might say, well, I'm so focused on firing my arrow that I am not able to really watch my feet, and I might slip and twist an ankle or something trying to navigate on this stone terrain.
Or it's one arrow versus a swarm. You take one.
Yeah, I
down
think that's
and-
the issue. It's
yeah.
just there's so many of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so who wants to roll the 2 dark dice?
Oh, I can do it.
So go ahead and add 2 dark dice, and then you can hit roll.
Oh, the highest one was a 4.
That's okay. We're going to add
Oh
them
no,
together.
it's the total.
Yep. So we've got a total of 7, which is actually the total of this monster, of this swarm. So the 2 of you are able to manage it, but just like you hit it on the nose, and Rose is actually going to take ruin from this. So why don't you go ahead and narrate? I think why don't we give Rose the sort of like culminating finishing blow of the battle. So Kano, why don't you open it up? Tell us what's it look like as Kano is, volleying arrows with this swarm.
Yeah, so like he's like fire arrow like and then like combat roll under a like swooping flame bat and then like lands and like whoosh and then lets off another arrow and then like side rolls and then like lets off another one. It's very acrobatic.
Very nice. Excellent. And then Rose, you've got Kano moving all around you, picking some of these off. What do we see as we look at Rose and see her casting this magic that finishes this swarm, but also brings some harm on her?
Well, the first thing you see is Phineas sees what's coming and quickly ducks down under the cloak and kind of tucks himself inside my armor. And it's the same sort of translucent eyes where you can see that I'm not completely there. So I don't notice as some of these bats are like ripping at my cheek or, hitting me with their wings. But at the end of it, there's still enough of a swarm left for me to negotiate with and talk to try to find out why these rats are on fire or why these bats are on fire, why they're attacking us, what sent them at us, because we are not there for them. We are not a harm to them. We are not a threat to them. We did not attack them. And so I would like them to go see to whoever set them upon us and visit the same upon them.
And I think in return, they I don't think they directly communicate. I think you just kind of there is this lash out of magical violence that
Mhm.
emanates from them as you realize that these bats have had a spell cast over them.
Mhm.
They dash themselves on on the surrounding cavern walls, but you are suddenly overcome with this glimpse, this flash of a sight of a very regal woman with a crown of roses wreathed in fire, and then the vision disappears.
Hmm.
And so if you haven't already, you can add one ruin.
Pretty sure I did because my starting ruin was 3 because I had 2 rituals, correct?
That's correct. So you should be at 4. So if you click the
Yes.
4, it should gray out. Or maybe I'm just not updating.
For me, it's if I click on it, there will be gray behind it, but the white number still stays bold.
Interesting. Oh, you're in dark mode. I see. Yeah.
Oh
No,
yeah,
that's fine. I was like, white number. Mine's black, but yeah, I'm in light mode.
yeah. Well, even so, the number stays black instead of gray.
Yep, because you can remove that ruin. It's
Okay.
you can eventually remove that one.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So now we do the bestiary. Sorry, I was like, I know I'm forgetting something. So yeah, if you click on the bestiary tab, someone can hit a new beast emerges, and we'll add a beast entry, and you as players get to name the creature, what these types of creatures were, and you'll have it as a thing that you've known, that you've learned about this world. Yeah, I'll go ahead, do that.
But one person should click it, right?
I just clicked it, so it should have showed up for you. If it
Oh,
did,
okay.
let me know.
I don't see anything.
You still just see the button?
I just
It
no,
popped up for me.
now it's there. It says flame bats.
Yeah, and I said flame bats just to get us started with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Something.
fill in the endurance level. So the endurance goes in the top left. So you've already learned these have. I'm going to add a specification. This is for the swarm. Yeah, flame bats. Any other proposals for what you want to call these creatures?
I mean, fire bats infringes on intellectual property rights. So, okay. So here's a question. These were bats that had a spell cast upon them, correct? For
Mhm.
both the fire and the attacking.
That's correct.
Okay. That's something that needs to be in the description, but is it something that also warrants being in the name?
It could be. I could definitely see where it might make sense that y'all are less naming the creatures themselves and more naming the spell. Because in a sense, this was a magical attack. I guess you could say.
So, I mean, would we want to call them ensorcelled bats or something? I mean,
yeah, I think just keeping it in the description is fine.
I mean, I feel like the three important bits were this was caused by magic outside the bat's control. They were all on fire, and they were bats.
Yeah, like possessed fire bats, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Possessed is, or I guess, yeah, possessed by fire.
And then I'll just point out, since we're all learning the game, you'll see, this on the this sort of beast stat block that Trophy uses. Monsters can have defenses and weaknesses. The D6 are like behaviors. That's actually more of a GM facing thing. Weaknesses, you can actually learn those. Like if you encounter a creature in the world and you whether you defeat it or not, you can learn the weakness by happening upon it, by experimenting and just learning, like, oh, this thing, fire bats are weak to water. Like, there you go. Or you can research in town. So you can pay gold to find out the weakness of a creature. So if you were playing a game where it's like, oh, there's some big monster out there and we can't beat it and we need to find out what its weakness is, that's one of the ways, is go back to town, pay a gold, and you learn what the weakness is.
So since these were not bats that are normally on fire, is one of their weaknesses fire? Is that part of what was causing them to be, well, more or less like to be as aggressive as they were?
That the aggressiveness in the fire was definitely all part of the spell. I will say it was not a weakness in this case. Like if you had used fire against them, it would not have reduced their endurance. Because when you use a monster's weakness, it reduces their endurance and makes them easier to defeat.
Sure, got it.
Okay, cool. So we've got possessed flame bats, a swarm of bats that had been magically enchanted by a malicious force, causing them to become engulfed in flames. So we have recorded our first beast. So yeah, we'll pick it back up. You've something, has attacked you from below. You can see that you can see, where these bats came from. There is that opening, like I mentioned. It is further down the pit, probably 25 feet or so down, and appears to open. In terms of spatial reasoning, it is below the room you've come from, right? So if you have that original column where you came out of into this pit, it's on that side. So it's not the side with the door, it's on the other side, just so you can kind of keep your mental map. Cassian, Gordred, what's going through y'all's minds now as you've kind of been uncovering what's behind that door and what might be waiting for you deeper down inside of this crypt?
I mean, information is useful, but I don't think I like any of this talk of fish people and dragging things around, and the rats don't like the fish people, so I'll take their word. I don't like the stairs. My vote is go explore a hole.
So we're not opening the door?
I mean, we could probably take on one fish person. Maybe they know something.
It occurs to me that if they have been locked there, as Phineas indicated, they might be an ally. They might be able to provide us some insight into what we face. They might be able to tell us more about the landscape, the layout of this hole.
I mean, as much as I don't want to make friends with someone who was locked in a mausoleum, I think Rose might have a good idea.
Yes.
At the very least, if we let them out, they might owe us a favor. I mean, if the choice is between starving in a mausoleum or perhaps helping out some travelers, I know which choice I'd rather make.
Okay, that's probably fair.
So standing between you and letting this person out are those heavy chains.
Heavy chains are something of a specialty of mine. And why not? Let me just go ahead and use another ritual. I selected knock, which allows me to unlock normal and sorceress locks. Those chains are nothing.
Convenient.
Not for Rose. No, I think that makes sense. All right. So you're using another ritual. It's another risk roll.
Are you okay? Yep.
So say what you hope will happen. Think we know, but let's just be clear.
Snickety snack, those locks are whack.
There we go. What could go wrong?
The chains like launch themselves off the door. Oh wait, no, this is more of a devil's bargain.
I think that could possibly be one or either. There's certainly room for overlap between the two, but yeah, the chains might like.
Yeah, the thing I'm thinking of is very much a devil's bargain.
Okay.
Because it would mean we could still get through the door.
What if the locks are magic and any attempt to circumvent them seals them permanently?
I think that might be too harsh, just
Okay.
because the ritual does call out opening sorceress locks.
Okay.
The ritual
was
does
thinking it's
say
a failure state, so-
nearby normal sorceress locks, and maybe something goes wrong involving your footing, because you like have to get super close to the door, and we've established that the ledge leading to the door is really dangerous.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is there's like vibrations or emanations from this whole thing, and it makes the platform unstable.
I'll say maybe like the spell works, but not on this lock. And there's like another like grating nearby that we don't see that opens up, and there's something on the inside that it's trying to keep out.
Okay. Yeah.
Something that's trying to keep out or keep in?
Why
Yeah.
not both?
Okay. I think it's all good ideas. And so you get the first light die because you're using your ritual for your skill.
Mhm.
Any devil's bargains to get a second light die?
Well, to go to the thing I was thinking of, like one of the chains sort of animates as a monster, and like regardless of success or failure on the ritual, like one of the chains animates as a monster and like wraps itself around the caster's throat.
It made me think of like you can remove the lock from here, but it has to lock around something else. And so yeah, the chains lock around you until you put them back.
It's funny. I was pretty much going to say the exact same thing. Like they unlock, revert to a locked place around you. But mine was you don't anticipate that Phineas is still hiding in your armor and he gets crushed.
Oh, poor Phineas. Let's see. Chris, any ideas for devil's bargains?
I was trying to think something along the lines of the locks open and it causes harm to the creature on the other side. Since we're trying to do essentially diplomacy, if this magical act either scares them because they don't like magic, or does like actual physical harm to them.
That's good.
Okay, I think what I'm going to offer is you, no matter what, you oh gosh, how do I work this in? No matter what new information about the swirling court is revealed to you.
Was that bad?
So I'm looking at Rose's drive, which
Yeah.
is to become part of the swirling court.
It could be bad.
It
I
could be
find
bad.
out that they're monstrous. Or maybe I'm a monster and they're too nice. Who knows? Could be either. You know what? I'll take that devil's bargain. The one about the swirling court. I like the idea of the chains. Wait, I can only pick one, right?
You can only pick one.
Damn
There
it.
can be only one.
Got to Highlander this. Okay. As much as I like the idea of the chains kind of latching on to me until I put them on something else, I got to go with the swirling court.
It's always so tempting with,
That's the character drive.
yep. Okay, so you've got your second light die.
And I've got to add one because I'm using a ritual for dark die. Correct?
That's right. Correct. And you are ready to roll. Let's click on risk.
That is 5 on the dark die. And that is the highest number. So I can't re-roll, can I?
No, you cannot. That's right, because if the highest number is on the dark die, then you cannot add another dark die and re-roll.
Gotcha.
And since a 5 is higher than your current ruin, your ruin also goes up. So Rose is already at 5 ruin.
Uh-oh.
But a 5 is a success, and there's some kind of complication. The GM describes the complication, and then you describe how you succeed. So I think for the complication, I'm gonna take the ensorcelled chains, and say that as you go to unlock this lock, the chains do animate and start snaking out, looking for things to grab. I don't think any of you are grabbed immediately, but you see the lock fall away and you can see the chains still slithering, reaching out and grasping for things to lock onto. So now, Rose, tell me, how do you succeed?
What do we have to do to have a piece of equipment in our backpack?
So you have the 3 you start with, and then for the additional equipment, you can just declare that you're pulling out one of the additional items, and then you'll mark it in one of the extra slots.
Okay. So as I see these chains start to snake out, looking at like they're searching for something, I quickly reach into my pack and I grab a 10-foot pole and I basically kind of bait them with it. So they start wrapping around this pole to grab onto it. I mean, if they're going to behave like snakes, then snakes like climbing things and they like coiling around things. So this should be more than sufficient for them.
Excellent. I love that. I think it works perfectly as they snake around. And so I'll say that your 10-foot pole has done the job handedly. Retrieving it might be another question. You'll have to consider how much you really want to be able to take that 10-foot pole with you again.
Yeah.
And then now for the devil's bargain. You bait these chains and they wrap around this 10-foot pole, and you've got this lock that has fallen away, and you can see where it's fallen. Imprinted on the back is the design of the swirling court. This appears to be an item of their making. What's the emblem or the insignia of the swirling court that we see?
It's a custom sigil. And it requires knowledge of art because it's something that people have been trying to decipher for ages in Agino's paintings. But it always pops up whenever one of his paintings depicted a particularly gruesome scene. So my question then becomes, is this one of Agino's symbols? Or was he a member of the swirling court as well? And is this something that he saw there?
And is seeing this symbol on this lock, is this something that's shocking to Rose, or does this make sense that they would have played a part in producing an item like this?
I think it's at the very least surprising and arguably shocking because the swirling court, as far as I know, is basically a bunch of nobles who get together and wear fancy clothes and swan around and go to balls and drink expensive wine and attend social events. They obviously have power. They're obviously connected. And if you are a member of the swirling court, then you have very little to worry about because they supposedly take care of their own. But I wasn't aware that they actually did anything. I thought they were people who largely just lived idle lives. So seeing this here is very surprising.
And I will say, it's possible this was something purchased, and maybe someone had it, monogrammed with this or something. So
Mhm.
it's a bit up for interpretation. But just as you're considering this, the door ekes forward, inching open. You hear this rusty squeaking of the hinges, and you see this scaled and leathery hand with webbing between the fingers slowly inch its way out, and then it's followed by a bald head that starts to peek around the corner of the door. These big, fishy, buggy eyes, heavy set on the sides of this skull, peer around, looking at you.
We intend you no harm. And you can see that the ritual has taken something out of me. Like I'm looking noticeably worse for wear with it. I've set you free at no small cost to myself. We would not have done so if we intended to hurt you.
Why risk yourself for me? Who are you? I expected to see my own lot, not this random group.
I'm a retired soldier and an apprentice to a sorcerer. I'm here looking for some things that he requested.
Are you here for the eyes? I told them it was a bad idea to take them. I told them others would come looking. They didn't listen to me.
Who are they?
My brethren, my kind, I don't know what your name for us is. And at this point, this creature has now stood up and started inching their way out the door, and you can see it is indeed a very fishy looking person with these big eyes. You can see gills on the side of their throat, sharp pointed teeth like a piranha's, and webbed fingers and toes. But they step out and they say, they've lost all control of their senses now. They do everything she says. She wanted the eyes, so they got the eyes. They don't think for themselves anymore. And when I stood against them, they threw me in here so that I could just rot. shameful. Shameful what they've done.
Who is this she that they follow?
Some woman. I don't know if she was always here. We came here when our lake dried up, and we made a new home down below, and I guess she was just here somewhere in this area, and they worship her now. They worship her like a god.
And that's all lower down. And I gesture to like the stairs at the other end of the mausoleum.
And it nods, yes. One of your kind came not long ago. They didn't take kindly to him. They took his eyes and threw him out. Said he could not look upon her.
Yeah, that tracks. Well, what will you do now? Where will you go?
I don't want to go anywhere. This is my home. These are my people, but they've clearly been trapped or something. I don't know. If you could deal with it, maybe there's hope for them yet. But
Perhaps we can free them from her influence.
I hope.
And ill-favored monarch is a blight upon the entire kingdom. That is a story I know well.
I just want to go back to the simple days, eating rats, swimming, lying in my cocoon. Those were the days.
Those days cannot be so simple anymore. The rats actually helped free you.
Makes them no less tasty.
You will need to stop eating them. You'll need to find another source of food.
Well, okay, listen. Fair enough. You and the rats apparently let me out. So I tell you what, you deal with her. I'll find another meal. I'll eat the frogs. How does that sound?
The frogs are much less enjoyable to pet. That's agreeable.
Here, I'll take this. It's the least I can offer. And it might be of use to you. And they hand over this, what looks like might have been the stomach of some animal that has been formed into an air bladder with a bit of a snorkel. And I'll tell you that that's also a treasure that you could sell back in town for a gold. So I think probably it sounds like Rose is closest. So Rose, you can add a swim bladder to your found equipment.
Okay.
And it sounds like we've accomplished the area thing.
Yes, you've now also accomplished the set goal. You know what stole the eyes.
Yeah. And we have a air bladder that might let one of us at least go down the pollen-filled staircase without getting spores in our lungs. Maybe.
So I think that's probably a good place for our next break. How's 5 minutes sound this time? Is that enough time for everyone?
Works for me.
All right, be back in 5.
Sounds
See
good.
you then. All right, we are back. So yeah, you have achieved the set goal. You have found out what stole the eyes of Saint Largoth. It is these, fish people demons. But it sounds like they're acting at the request of some other creature, person, something that is within this dungeon. And so I think at this point you've got 2 paths forward. One is down the stairway, and then one is potentially climbing down and trying to climb into that open place where you saw the bats fly out of. Also, very important thing that I forgot to do is the gold roll. After you beat monsters, you get to roll for gold because monsters have valuable parts on them and sometimes carry treasures. And so we missed over that. So I'll click us over to the gold dice mode. So the way the gold roll works is after you defeat a monster, you roll the number of dice equal to its endurance rating. And then for every 6 that you roll, you get 1 gold. And it's kind of y'all's decision in terms of how that's going to be split among all of you. So the monster you defeated had an endurance of 7. So if someone would like to roll 7 gold dice.
Ooh. Someone else doing it?
Why don't you go ahead and do it, Matt?
Yep, go for it.
So what is it we're looking for?
6s.
6s.
1 6.
So you got 1 6.
I'll give it to
good.
Rose because she got injured and I didn't.
And Rose and Kano, even though you only got 1 item worth gold, you get to describe what from these creatures is valuable. Whether it's parts you're harvesting or something that they might have been carrying.
And how much gold is coming from this?
So your gold roll only got you 1 piece of
Okay.
gold, and it sounds like is everyone good with giving that to Rose? So Rose, you're gonna get that 1 gold, but the people that were in the fight, which was Rose and Kano, you get to describe what from these creatures might be harvestable to take back.
What do you think, Matt?
I mean, they're flaming bats. Maybe like one of them, that actually landed on the landing rather than falling into the pit. Like you were able to harvest like a tooth or something or a pair of teeth from it, and those are somehow magically resonant.
That works. I mean, it gets away from the stereotypical wing of bat type thing. So
Nice. Yeah. So, and if you want, so technically, right, you would get the monster part, and then when you get back to town, you trade that for 1 gold. So if you want to put down, bat teeth, 1 gold.
And is that under found equipment or?
Yeah, that would be under found equipment. Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like at the moment, Rose, you've got 2 items. You've got 2 gold set up, so you're 2/5 of the way towards your burdens. Others, if you've got hunt tokens, reminder, you can cash those in, whenever. If you don't have hunt tokens, then you get those by doing hunt rolls. So tell me what you want to check out. Though it sounds like I think at this point y'all probably have to probe a bit deeper to find more things to investigate. So what are you thinking about in terms of your path forward?
First thing I'm thinking about is how to reduce ruin.
Yeah, and so you can't reduce ruin until you get back to town.
Oof.
And so this is where like a bit of the system mastery comes in. Since Rose you're at your last hit essentially. It might be worth spending hunt tokens to achieve set goals rather than going through the process of attempting risky tasks and things, because that puts you at risk for losing Rose. And y'all haven't technically entered the next set yet. It's gonna be when you either go down the stairs or go to this next place, and so I'll tell you what that set goal is when you go in there.
Well, I mean, I'm not much of a climber. Should we try and see if we can use that air bladder through the hallway at all?
can try it. The risk is that we're potentially doing it maybe like 1 or 2 at a time max. Like maybe we have to do 2 of us go share the air, get through, one person comes back with it, shuttles another person through.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was also
If it's even possible to get through at all.
there was the idea last time as well of using fire.
Yeah.
That's true.
So we could just try lighting it on fire.
Mhm.
The downside is pollen, vaguely reminiscent of flour. You've ever lit a torch in a flour mill? Not a good idea.
I've seen the after effects.
We all
Um,
recall the torch in the flour mill.
Mm-hmm. It's a common children's story that you tell so your children don't light torches in flour mills.
Mhm.
I love the idea of what children's stories Gordred was told growing up.
Right. Everyone else is just like, no, that's not a children's story.
Okay, so we've got at least one person. It sounds like at least a couple thinking stairway over climbing. How's that sound for Rose and Kano?
I'm good with climbing, unless you want to chuck a torch into that down the staircase and see if we can ignite it all.
Mhm. And I did have the idea of using the swim bladder, like filling up with air and basically just like compacting it to blow air out and basically use it to just like push the
Mm.
pollen and make
I think
it
that
pass.
seems safest.
I mean, we can try. The pollen is reasonably visible if we're careful, I think. So if we can like test, like by the door to the stairs, be like, okay, is this even like a conceivably workable option?
Mhm.
And go from there. Using it like a bellows.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like that's sort of the plan forward. So as you head back to that area and you approach the top of this staircase, again you see this cloud of this like pollen type substance hanging in the air as it descends down into the darkness of the stairway. And as you reach the top of the staircase, you can see just almost reaching the top, the tips of these vines. And as you stand there, you hear a faint singing hanging in the air. But no time to ponder that for too long because it sounds like you've got to press forward. So who is attempting this swim bladder bellows?
Well, it's Cashin's idea, so he'll take the risk.
And I actually think this is a hunt roll versus a risk roll. Because I think you're more just from the sound of it, you're investigating, is this even gonna happen? You're not just charging in to the
Mhm.
cloud. So I think it sounds like a hunt roll. So you've got a piece of equipment that you're using,
Mhm.
and you've already got the one light die for working with it. So that's your 2 hunt dice. So I think you're good to go and roll 2 light dice for that.
Okay. So highest is the 6.
All right. Just looking for my table to make sure I read the result correctly. There it is. So on a 6, you take a token.
Okay.
And with this bladder bellows thing, you have a decent amount of success. It's pollen hanging in the air. You can push it away with air. I think the only difficulty you find is that it's everywhere. This cloud doesn't stop. And this is going to be a long process if this is the way you approach it. And even as you do it, right, it's like the air current starts filling in around you. And so it's a continuous process to manage this. But as you inch forward a little bit, you can see, though the light is fading as you make it a little bit further in, you see now these vines. They're clearly alive and growing, but they look like what was found in the man's possessions. These vines that snake out, and on them are these tiny cherub angel faces that are bone white. And it seems like you can hear this bit of singing, this ringing sound of song just hanging on the air. You're muted.
I don't like weird singing.
Thank you.
Cassian.
Yeah, so as Cashin comes back from like going in a little bit, like blowing all the air around, neither do I, especially when it's coming from creepy vines. And it goes down pretty deep. I think if we want to go this route, we might have to try, your forbidden children's song trick, or we may have to climb down.
I mean, the other part of the children's story is how to do it safely,
Oh,
which
well,
is vent the explosion out a separate escape route and do it from a safe location. So
oh,
it's doable.
you should have led with that. I thought all the children died.
Most.
So we'll maybe try opening like the door to the mausoleum, like.
Yeah, practically speaking, that's kind of
Mm.
what Gordred is getting at. It's just like, yeah, we need to open the front door completely, and then we should be off in like the room with the pit and throw a torch, basically, and see if it does anything. Maybe it doesn't explode. It's not flour. Gordred isn't a scientist.
As we're setting this all up, Cash is just kind of like humming the children's song as he goes.
All right, so it sounds like this is now Gorger taking the lead. Yeah, are you just you're gonna throw the torch in, or do you what's it look like? Do you test it a bit first, or?
If there's like some pollen out that like got blown out by using the bellows, I think like Gordred maybe like goes to like some corner of the tomb area and like tries to light the pollen on fire and sees if it burns up.
Okay. I think this is going to be another hunt roll.
Yeah, and then maybe it's a risk roll to actually throw it in to burn it all down.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what this initial reaction is like. So yeah, you've got the one dice for just trying stuff, and then a second one because it sounds like you're using the torch, which you already lit a torch last time, I think, right?
This is the same torch.
Yeah, because they last like 3 hours.
3 hours, yeah.
So we're definitely still in that window. So yeah, go ahead and roll 2 light dice.
Right. 5 and a 5.
Double 5s. All right, so you get a token. Go ahead and take a token. But you encounter something terrible. And the something terrible is this pollen is definitely flammable.
I mean, good. Good. Scary, good. But good. I think Gordred turns to everyone else and is like, okay, yeah, so it is very flammable. How careful do we want to be? Just like
I
very
weakly
straight
look up.
faced is like,
I look up kind of weakly and say, I could use a little bit of a break. So how about Ferry?
okay, then probably head outside.
Okay, we need to stand back for this little bit.
Yeah. Outside will be safest. Next safest would be attach yourself to a rope and hang down the side of the pit.
Outside is good.
That doesn't sound very safe.
Don't stand at the door though. That would be bad.
It's like a scene of everyone like standing at the door and Gorge is just like further back, takes like a step back, no further.
It's like if there's some like tree out there, just go stand at the tree. It's like when you're setting up a emergency escape plan of like where to meet your kids in case of a fire. It's like, no, we meet down at the corner of the block and here's the numbers that you call. It's like, no.
All right, Gordred. So yeah, it sounds like everyone kind of exits the mausoleum, stepping around the corner so that they're out of the way of the vent, and you're gonna throw the torch and then hit the deck, I guess.
I'm going to tie the rope that we used for Cassian before around my waist, tie the other end to something that seems reasonably durable, and yeah, hit the deck kind of near the pit after I throw the torch like around the corner.
I mean, you know what would be a great place to protect yourself from flames, right? In that standing sarcophagus.
Maybe, but not necessarily explosions. I'm torn because it might just be fire, but it might be like percussive force, and then I don't want to be in the path from the stairs to the entrance because that's where I think. Gordon just
fair.
could be totally wrong on this anyway. Like,
This is all based on a child's story. I don't see how this could go wrong.
yeah. Well, and Gordon has plenty of experience destroying things.
Very true.
So there's some idea of how this could go horribly wrong. But yeah.
Okay, so idea is tying off to something sturdy and
just in case I get shoved by a pressure wave and
Gotcha.
fall down the pit.
Sounds good. So yeah, this is a risk roll. So take one light colored die. Oh, sorry, before we build dice. So say what you hope will happen.
I hope that all of the pollen, it'll just catch fire like a wick or like a fuse and just like burn down the stairs.
Yeah.
Basically.
And now we can all say what could go wrong. It could do that, but it could do that very violently. I think is
so the explosion to various degrees of it could collapse the stairs.
Yeah.
It could hurt me. It could hurt people outside.
That was basically my idea as well, that it's not just flammable, but in fact explosive, turning this mausoleum into basically a fragmentation grenade.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to deal with the big bad, is just blow them up. But
any other ideas for what could go wrong? I think we've got an explosive situation. Okay. Now devil's bargains. Anyone have a devil's bargain to offer?
No matter what, this is going to be extremely loud, and whoever's lower down is going to notice to be ready.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Like, and not just whatever power has noticed the magic, like everything down below. You know, whether it's allied with the sorceress or the fish people or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them might actually start coming up just to see what happened.
I'll say like the fire is so close to the pits of hell that it like takes on an aspect of like hell flame or whatever. And something in the fire like whispers about your betrothed, since it's a demon.
So here's a thought. What if the pollen is actually sentient?
Oh God. And you just hear screaming.
And like you can hear, and it doesn't just burn away, the ash continues to scream.
Yeah, that's
I
a
feel like that's
bargain right
totally the
there.
most appropriate.
I think I will offer that how do I want to phrase this? I think I will offer that there is a temptation to acquire something you think your betrothed would like from within the flames. I'm not
Just
entirely
like,
sure what that is quite yet.
okay.
I'm not sure if it's something that you see or if Gordred has an idea of like, you know, is there something that they think they could make, you know, given a large amount of flames. But I'm thinking some sort of opportunity presents itself to attempt to acquire something of value. But it's gonna put you, you know, in the flames.
I really like the idea of the pollen being sentient, like, because it's implying like the bits that we do know or we suspect is like that whoever this woman is, this being that is being worshipped, is like generating this pollen. It's part of this mind control kind of thing, but maybe the pollen itself is like captured soul energy or something wild like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. All right, cool. So we'll go with that one. And then finally, you can add a dark colored die if you're willing to risk your mind or body in order to succeed. You can add this after the fact, and you don't have to add it right away since you're not doing a ritual. But if you want to, you can.
Okay. I'm almost tempted to include it at first, but I really shouldn't because the game does not make me. So
Yeah, the game does not make you, so you can start with the 2 light dice, and if you don't like the result, you can add it and reroll. Okay.
2 and a 4.
So on a 4, you succeed, but there's some kind of complication. I think the complication is going to be that you do indeed get knocked backwards, and you are left dangling on the rope. So you can take that, or you can add a dark die and roll again.
I'll take it. I'll take it because, one, my odds of doing better than a 4 without also taking ruin from rolling the dark die is not all that great, I think.
What determines
And
whether you take ruin from a dark die?
if the dark die is highest,
Yeah, so you're gonna, yeah.
yeah. And Gordred was kind of okay with climbing down to the hole in the pit anyway, so, yeah. Help your friends out and go down the pit. Win-win.
Okay. So why don't you describe this, what it looks like as you throw the torch and then this, large blast and Gordred going over the edge.
Yeah, so the fear was apparently totally well-founded, that this pollen is very small, very powdery, very dry, and just the flame chews through it, and the pressure from the combustion just builds and builds, and you just like feel it, all of the air rush out of the tomb entrance, but it also blasts into Gordred, and Gordred just goes like backwards. The rope catches, and then Gordred just like drops into the pit. And like I think Gordred like catches himself like feet first at least against the wall of the pit, but is down like 10-15 feet down in the pit.
Right, and since it's twine that you're using, right? This isn't even proper rope, and so that's why
Makeshift rope.
that's what I think like the real complication, right? Is like you can see the twine is overstressed by this, and so you could tell it is fading fast. You can either attempt to scurry back up, or you've got that entrance just a bit a ways from you. Before we hear what you're going to do, though, the rest of you, this jet of flame, right, comes out the mausoleum entrance, and a moment later clears. And as you go back to the entrance to check on everything, you can now hear this wailing and loud groaning coming up from the stairway. These cries of anguish. And you
I think that's confusing and just like, just disconcerting, but still fundamentally like the priority is to check on the person who took the risk. So I go and look for what happened to Gordred. Like I just run into where I knew they would be, dangling by a rope.
Yeah, and you find Gordred dangling there at the end of this twine that I'm imagining you. I think we had said y'all earlier had like doubled it up, right, to try and make it a makeshift rope. Kano, what do you yell down to Gordred?
I say, do you want to hand up, or are you gonna climb down?
I think in like the lightning decision that Gordred does is like looks up, sees how far it is up, looks down and sees how close the opening is, and which is closer is the one that Gordred goes for. This might just be I flip a coin.
I'm good with that because I'm not sure which might be exactly closer, and I think that's a good approximation of the sort of unknowable risks of how good are the handholds climbing up versus climbing over to the opening. So what do you want to say? Heads you go up, tails you go down.
Yeah, or I'll just roll
Yeah, you can roll one of the dice.
a light die, and 1 to 3 is down, 4 to 6 is up. Okay, I go down. I'm like, I don't trust this rope, and I think I'm close enough to the opening that we spotted. I'm gonna go down.
Very well, then we shall meet you down there.
Yes. It sounded like the stairs cleared, so everything should be perfectly good.
And You climb down and you climb into this, you pull yourself into this collapsed doorway and find yourself in this room with ornate stone walls. There's flagstone flooring, and throughout it are these large clay pots that have what look like various plants that at one point were growing, but they've all been strangled to death by this vine that wraps around it. And you can smell on the air this singeing of all the pollen that was just burnt away. But what you notice most is this hand that reaches up from the sarcophagus in the center of the room. This bony, pale white hand that inches the fingers over, and sprouting from the tips of the fingernails, coming from under the skin, are small, tiny rosebuds. We're going to cut away from you. And the rest of you, back in the top room, the stairway is indeed clear. All you're left with are the cries of this pollen that is turned to ash and is lining the stairway. The vines are still alive, you can see. I mean, they look singed, but they're still alive. And I think you can see too on these small cherub faces, their expression has changed. They've taken on a look of pain and anguish. And so you all are into the next set. The set goal for this set is to discover the path to the corrupting plant. So, do you press on down the stairway?
Yeah.
As you press down, eventually about 15 feet or so down, it opens up. The stairway continues going down to a lower level, but you've reached what's that called? A midpoint, a landing. That's the word I'm looking for. A landing where there's now an opening to the left, which you know to be the direction towards where Gordred would have, that hole Gordred went through would be at. And you can hear these raspy voices coming from the room to your left. And one of them's going, oh, that's smarts. Oh, what did that? Oh, what a terrible thing that was. That flame, what? Oh, but the air. Oh, I can smell again. Ah, she wouldn't have liked that, would she? What do you do?
I want to reunite with Gordred first. I don't like the party being split, so I want to head in that direction.
Additionally, it is dark now down here. So is anyone lighting a torch or anything, or are you going to try and make your way through the darkness?
Cashin does have the other torch, because I think we had found 2.
Yeah, there were 2 found torches when you first
I have a
got
slew of
here.
candles if you want one of those.
That's true.
Also, please grab the torch I threw if it isn't, in total tatters. It might still be useful.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I think like there's a quick scene of like Cashin, like while we're still up on the top landing, like rummaging around, grabbing the torch and kind of like dusting it off and shaking it as there's the wailing in the background. And so like as we descend further, Cashin will light the torch basically and like hold it forward so that Kano can kind of like see further ahead. And he'll say to him, like, I think the voices came from that way, but it didn't sound like Gordred.
And sounds like though Keno wants to make quick work of this, right?
Yeah, because I mean, I know more or less which, right? It sounds from your description like we know more which direction Gordred is in.
Right.
And
Yeah,
maybe
this
for
the
them it's high
the
priority.
yeah. So rounding the corner, and coming into view of the torchlight, you see three goblins, and goblins in this world, they have these very very large noses like a shark's fin, and sort of these short stout heads that sit on somewhat squat shoulders. And you can see the one that was just talking and is now laughing, and he's looking at the others, and he says, you see one of them holding the sword, and they've not yet turned to acknowledge you, but you hear one of them saying, well, man, maybe now's the time, maybe now is when we strike. Here, you take it, go do it quick.
And I'm just like getting an arrow out, like trying by. I'm like, strike who exactly?
Oh, what? Who are you? Are you? She sent you, didn't she? You'll not take us. And he's pushing his friend holding the sword forward. Good. Here, stop them.
I'm just going to hold up my hands
Yeah.
and say,
I lower my arrow.
I don't know who she is, but it sounds like there is a sorceress in this crypt that has been causing everyone a great deal of problems. Is that who you're talking about?
And they give you a wary look and say, so you're not with her?
No, not at all.
Oh, thank goodness. Perhaps you came to kill her then?
If need be.
I'm not opposed to the. We didn't come here specifically for that. I don't believe. I came in search of something else, but perhaps we can work together. It sounds as though you have a problem, and it sounds as though maybe we can help each other.
We have a sword. Do you need it? Are you fighters? Are you trained?
I have a sword.
And I kind of,
Perhaps two swords.
I just kind of open my cloak and I kind of pat the sword on my hip.
And then they look to Castian. What about you? Do you need a sword?
Cassian just kind of like pats himself up and down and is like, I'm not much of a sword person. That's what those two are for.
Here, let me take a look at this. I'm curious about your sword. Tell me about it. Where did you find it?
And I think this is a good point for a hunt roll with interacting with them.
Okay.
So you get one light die for
Okay.
investigating. Do you have a skill or piece of equipment that makes your hunt easier?
I'm a retired soldier. Does that count?
Is there a skill that you get from that?
Gave me the skill tactics. I'm also a sorcerer and I have knowledge of symbols. So is there any symbols on the sword that I might recognize?
No, there aren't any symbols, and I think tactics more applies to like studying a battle plan or something like that. I'm not sure it's going to apply for judging a sword. So it's sounding like just the one light die, unless you've got an item from your backpack or additional equipment that you can pull out.
Let's see. Alchemy doesn't sound like it's going to apply.
Mhm.
Would my mirror do anything?
I could possibly be persuaded, how would you use the mirror to help you with this?
Seeing what the reflection looks like, trying to shine light upon it and see what happens, whether it glows, whether there's anything revealed by the light being shown onto it. I'm thinking like the whole Durin's Day thing in The Hobbit.
Sure, I'll go for that.
Okay. So I need to mark that on my character sheet or?
Nope. The mirror
Okay.
doesn't have a set number of uses. You're just
Okay.
using it. So you've got 2 light dice, and you can go ahead and roll.
Do I need to roll a dark die?
You do not for a hunt roll.
Okay.
5 and a
4 and
4.
a 5.
So you get a hunt token. So go ahead and add a hunt token to your sheet.
All right. Is there
And-
a specific place we should do that?
You
up
yeah.
near the per character picture. Okay.
and you encounter something terrible.
Of course.
And-
It's Gordred.
I'm gonna hold on to that, and we're gonna cut back to Gordred. So Gordred, you've come into this room and you see this hand reaching up out of a sarcophagus, and then you see the lid of the sarcophagus start to slide over. What are you doing as this is happening?
Cordred's first reaction to something trying to slide the lid off its own sarcophagus would be to kind of push the lid back in place. Maybe not entire, maybe not like, oh, I want to, break your arm sliding back in place, but like, no. Stop that.
I feel like I don't know why I didn't think that you would try this, but it makes complete sense, and I don't know. I'm really enjoying this idea of if you like, nope, you don't get to come out. I think this is going to be a risk roll. I think that's what this is, because I don't think it's quite at combat. So say what you hope to accomplish.
I hope to. My goal is to keep whatever is inside contained, so like keep whatever's inside harmless.
Yeah. Okay. And now we all say what could go wrong. And I'm also noticing the time. We're at 10 till, so we'll do this and then we'll wrap up quickly.
Maybe the last thing.
So what could go wrong? Well, you can obviously fail at keeping the lid on there, and this thing is able to exit. Anyone else got any ideas for what?
I feel like that's the easiest decision, right? Like it goes wrong, it's chasing Gordred, and that's the terrible thing the rest of us encounter, and we all like link back up.
Yeah,
that's the most narratively satisfying. And even if like they succeed, like it still is probably going to get out and chase them.
Yeah, it's a temporary solution at best, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 thoughts. 1, you grievously injure whatever is in there, and it is pursuing us with intent and rage. Or, and this is a different way to flavor it, it might have had beef with the sorceress, and now it has beef with us because you messed with it.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to not just like snap its arm off.
Yeah.
I like those ideas. Devil's bargains. I'm gonna reuse my earlier devil's bargain and say that as you go to close this lid, well, I'll say it anyways because I'm not sure if it's the best devil's bargain, but whatever. You'll see something inside. You'll see a treasure inside that you think would appeal to your betrothed.
I'll say, like, as you're trying to hold the lid down and prevent whatever's inside from getting out, like if this was like a TV show, the camera kind of like pans behind you and there's something behind you, like you didn't notice something else in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That's good, yeah.
What if the thing in the sarcophagus is the thing that you think your betrothed would like?
I mean, Yeah, so I actually really like the bringing in the drive here because I can picture like I managed to get the lid back on or mostly back on, and then I'm just like sitting on top of the lid to prevent it from moving. And the rest of you come in and you're like, what's up? And you're just like, there's something in here, but also I want to get inside.
So you want to take that one?
Yeah.
Is its
Okay.
arm poking out and like kind of flailing as we walk in
It's
and
like-
sitting on this lid?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Potentially, like depending on how this goes.
Yeah. Do you want to add a dark colored die to start?
No.
Okay.
I'll
All
just
right.
roll 2 light die and see how this goes.
Got 2 light die to start. Yep. Double
Double
sixes.
Ooh.
All right. So you succeed. You close this thing off. Describe how.
I think it's like I notice this and I'm just like, thing trying to get out of its own sarcophagus, rush over, and I just plant my boots against these cobblestones and just like grab the corner of this heavy lid. Like I get to it and it's like, how the hell is this thing pushing its own sarcophagus lid off? And just shove it back and like it kind of like catches it ever so slightly and it just goes like, and I just am like, push it closed and just like lean my weight on top of it.
And as you go to, and you go to push it closed, you catch a glimpse of the creature inside. You see this woman in an elegant gown. She's wearing jewelry, an ornate necklace around her neck, and then traveling up her face. You see above on the crown of her head, she wears a literal crown of rose thorns. And as you go to push the lid shut, her eyes open and rose petals unfurl, and her head slowly turns to look at you as it inches closed. She pulls her hand in. And then back in the adjacent room where the rest of you are having this discussion with the goblins, you're something terrible. You're investigating this sword, and it doesn't look to be any sort of magical note or historical note. It's a fine sword. It's a worthy weapon, but nothing out of the ordinary. And you can hear this the stone sarcophagus lid sliding across the rest of it from the room adjacent, but then you hear a wet flop of a footstep from behind you, and then you hear a hiss. And you turn, you see another fish person that has come up from the stairway below. They are hissing at you from behind. And that is where we will stop for tonight. So thank you everyone who has watched along. I'm going to end the recording now and we're going to do our wrap up off camera.